Hearing that, the man couldn't help but be astonished. Stealing eggs? Stealing phoenix eggs, just you alone? Zhou Zhang smiled knowingly and calmly replied, not necessarily. Perhaps a few unfriendly friends will pay a visit too. At the same time, Zhang Wei spoke up and asked, Captain, why do we have to take on this mission? Zhang Ruochang snapped irritably, what do you know to ask? Killing mutated beasts to earn points? Those few points can never compare to completing the mission. My points are already too low, this is the fastest way to improve. He thought to himself, if I succeed this time, I could earn 40,000 points, maybe even make it into the top 3. I must wash away the humiliation from before. Zhang Wei was stunned and stammered, Captain, really? As he was observing the situation, Zhang Wei noticed 2 red phoenixes flying around behind the rock outcrop. He immediately reported, Captain, I've spotted the phoenix's nest. Zhang Ruochang smirked, pleased, and said, that's great. He quickly ordered preparations. Suddenly, Zhang Wei shouted in panic, oh my god. He loudly called, Captain, you need to look. It seems there's someone by the nest. Through the binoculars, the image of Zhou Zhang struggling to climb up the rock outcrop instantly came into Zhang Ruochang's view. He yelled furiously, why do we keep running into this bastard? Zhang Wei was extremely anxious and asked, Captain, what should we do now? The city lord once warned not to provoke him. Zhang Ruochang's face darkened, his expression tense, as if he had just lost a valuable opportunity. He spoke softly, that bastard doesn't seem to have brought that giant beast today. Zhang Ruochang grinned with cunning, replying, well, if he suddenly dies there, it has nothing to do with us, right? Zhang Wei stood behind, trembling to the point of paling, devoid of any blood. At the same time, Zhou Zhang had climbed to the top. He jumped over a rocky outcrop, landed safely, and breathed a sigh of relief. Zhou Zhang looked at the bright pink eggs before him, silently thinking, quick victory, if the phoenix returns later, escaping won't be easy. Without hesitation, he quickly stored the eggs in his spatial bag. Before leaving, Zhou Zhang kindly left a few eggs for Zhang Ruochang's group. He chuckled softly and muttered, don't say I'm not generous, leaving a few for you guys. After that, he immediately vanished from the place. Suddenly, Zhou Zhang sensed a disturbance below. A powerful attack struck him unexpectedly. Zhou Zhang was knocked back, crashing hard against a nearby rock outcrop. Zhang Wei excitedly shouted, if you don't die, at least you'll be left in misery. At that moment, a piercing scream echoed. The phoenix had discovered its beloved eggs were stolen. It roared frantically, its red eyes fixated on the group atop the mountain. Zhou Zhang looked at the scene before him, feeling that things were not looking good. He muttered, not good. Without delay, he quickly executed a skill. In an instant, Zhou Zhang vanished without a trace. Zhang Ruochang saw this and couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment, what's going on? Where did he go? At that time, Zhou Zhang had spotted the group on the adjacent rocky outcrop. He smirked coldly and thought to himself, very good, you dare to play tricks on me? Fine, I will show you what treachery is. Zhang Wei anxiously said, Captain, those phoenix birds originally didn't detect Zhou Zhang. If we continue to stay here, we'll surely be discovered sooner or later. Hearing this, Zhang Ruochang pondered for a moment and then ordered, withdraw for now. Zhou Zhang unexpectedly spoke up, his voice low but filled with menace, you probably won't have a chance to leave here anymore. Upon hearing this, Zhang Ruochang was taken aback and swiftly turned around, gritting his teeth, Zhou Zhang, do you really think you can kill our whole team by yourself? You dare to come out here on your own? You really want to die. Zhang Wei was flustered, trying to find a way to convince the captain to retreat before the phoenixes returned. He stammered, Captain, we still. Before he could finish his sentence, Zhang Ruochang shouted loudly, shut up. You fool. Can't you see? We and Zhou Zhang are in a situation where it's either him or us. If he doesn't bring a beast, what does he have to fight against us? Hearing this, Zhou Zhang slightly curled his lips, his eyes full of disdain. He casually summoned a little beast and coldly replied, you think very clearly, but who told you that the beast isn't here? Immediately afterward, a roar echoed. A giant green dragon appeared, opening its mouth and letting out several resounding roars. Seeing this scene, Zhang Ruochang couldn't help but be stunned, stammering, "How? How is this possible?" Zhang Wei, standing beside him, also shouted in fear, "What? What kind of person is he?" Nevertheless, Zhang Ruochang still tried to maintain his composure, bravely asserting, "His weapon can't break our defense. No matter the beast, we must work together to kill Zhou Zhang." Zhou Zhang nearly smirked, drew his weapon, and his gaze turned icy. He asked mockingly, "Are you sure?" In an instant, Zhou Zhang launched a powerful strike, stunning Zhang Ruochang and his teammates, leaving them no time to react. Zhang Ruochang was caught off guard. He was astonished and shouted loudly, "Impossible! Impossible!" After being stabbed with a fatal blow, he panicked and cried out, "My armor! How could he penetrate it?" Zhou Zhang spoke sternly, his gaze cold as he looked at his opponent, "So, whether there is a little beast or not, your fate will be the same." Without saying another word, Zhou Zhang stomped hard on the ground and jumped high into the air. His eyes gleamed with murderous intent as he shouted, "Kill!" In the blink of an eye, the entire team was dispatched by him cleanly. In a campsite not far away, news spread quickly. Chu Fei exclaimed in astonishment, "All 6 of Zhang Ruochang's people are dead." Yi Yihong indifferently commented, "See, I told you, rushing in won't get you a hot tofu. Taking on a mission recklessly like that, truly asking for death." On the other hand, Su Qinglin was so shocked that she could only remain silent, unable to speak. After a moment, all 3 of them exclaimed in shock, "I remember that kid seems to have accepted the mission to collect phoenix eggs." Meanwhile, Zhou Zhang had returned to the training center. He spoke up, assigning the mission, "Phoenix eggs." The woman responsible for receiving the mission stared in amazement, exclaiming, "Ah, Zhou! You completed the mission so quickly?" In an instant, Zhou Zhang jumped to 41 essay place on the leaderboard. He cheerfully waved goodbye to the woman, while she was still in shock. Zhou Zhang told himself, "Very good. With the remaining time, I will take advantage of it to level up like crazy." Time slipped by, and before long, a month had passed. Looking at the leaderboard, everyone couldn't help but be astonished. Zhou Zhang has climbed to first place. Incredible! A martial artist said softly, "I could see that this kid was a genius from the beginning." Zhou Zhang has now defeated the Silver Serpent Valley and has become a level 15 martial artist. After killing snakes for a whole month, it's time to change places. Zhou Zhang quickly leaped into the air, below him were fierce beasts roaming around. He smirked slightly, then the hunting game officially begins. Time flew by, in the blink of an eye, 10 months had passed. Everyone gathered together again. Yi Yihong gently asked, "Brother Fei, how much has that kid grown now?" Zhou Fei replied, his voice filled with astonishment, "I can't even imagine." Su Changlin couldn't help but chuckle, "Haha. No need to imagine, just look at his point total, which alone is equivalent to the combined total of the top 9. The current first place has 134,670 points, while second place only has 44,211 points, a gap that seems like it spans a whole round of the earth." At this moment, someone shouted, "Student Zhou! You've returned. After more than 10 months, you've grown astonishingly fast." Zhou Fei turned in surprise to look at Zhou Zhang, who had now become a level 21 martial artist. Zhou Zhang smiled and said, "Everyone has grown at a decent pace as well." Shortly thereafter, all martial artists gathered in the central training square. The head instructor stepped forward, seriously speaking, "Now, on behalf of the central capital, I officially declare the first place in this training session." She exclaimed, "Zhou Zhang." Shinjun Hang joyfully exclaimed, "First place! First place!" Yang Xiangzong was equally delighted, "Junior Zhou, I knew you could do it." The chief stepped up to announce, "A 10th rank martial artist has also jumped through reserve stages and ultimately became a city councillor of the central capital. Zhou Zhang will now assume the role of captain of the Asian regional team." Zhou Zhang lightly smirked with satisfaction. Finally, I've reached this milestone. A person approached the first place, gently saying, Zhou Zhang, I truly did not misjudge you. But I must remind you that guiding this team is no simple task. Zhou Zhang promptly replied, don't worry, I will make the other regions see the true strength of the Asian team. At the same time, in the Naban forest area, shrouded in a mysterious atmosphere, the captain of the European team, a level 26 martial artist, shouted, search carefully. The crystal fruit is definitely in this area. He drew a powerful weapon, while George reminded, this time, the information about the crystal fruit is known not just to us. There's the Asian team, the American team, and the Eurasian Union team. We must not be careless. Suddenly, a powerful little beast appeared. Zhou Zhang immediately alerted through the intercom, all squads pay attention. I have arrived at the target area. The voice on the other end responded, received, Captain. The command center has detected that the European team is likely near your position. Hearing this, Zhou Zhang raised an eyebrow, his eyes revealing curiosity. Oh, in that case, I won't mind letting the little beast pay them a visit. Hearing a loud noise, George frowned slightly, wondering, what is that sound? Could it be that this rainforest still harbors such a large exotic beast? Immediately after, a roar echoed through the sky. George was taken aback, his eyes filled with astonishment. It was a little beast darting towards them at a terrifying speed, simultaneously roaring loudly. He said in a serious tone, I cannot discern its level. This is a type of exotic beast that we absolutely cannot confront. The incident left George feeling bewildered. Clearly, during previous investigations, this rainforest had never been documented to have such a type of exotic beast. He looked up high, his eyes momentarily shocked, then murmured, no, that's not right. I have seen this in the documents. Could it be the captain of the Asian team? In the distance, Zhou Zhang was watching the formation of the Europe team, secretly marveling, oh, everyone looks like mobile iron towers, their momentum is truly impressive. He thought to himself, now only the Africa team and the Eurasian Union team have yet to appear. While it might allow the little beast to fly by and snatch the crystal fruit, it would cause the team members to miss out on a real training opportunity. Suddenly, Zhou Zhang's watch beeped with a notification. He smirked slightly and said, the people have arrived. Without hesitation, he immediately dashed off. At this moment, Mambor, the captain of the Africa team, had arrived. With the strength of a martial artist at 26 stages, he unexpectedly unleashed a strong strike forward. On the opposite side, Lev, the captain of the Eurasian Union team, who was also a 26-stage martial artist, laughed loudly, his tone full of arrogance, haha, the crystal fruit is right in front. Lev looked around, his cold eyes filled with killing intent, then glared and grunted, look at those cowards running away. Who dares to stop us? At that moment, a martial artist reported to the captain, according to the inspection, the crystal fruit must be behind this mass of vines. The captain replied, but the wall formed by the vines is truly a headache. Chu Fei nodded slightly in agreement, that's right, this mass of vines is very difficult to deal with. If we focus all our energy on handling it, there is a good chance we will be ambushed by teams from other continents. Su Chenglin added, in a contemplative tone, we can also think more broadly. Perhaps other teams are also struggling with these vines. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Zhang said softly, I have some insights on dealing with this type of plant. Just watch the rhythm and the way I move. By coordinating with high-level armor-piercing weapons, we can quickly open a path. Under the watchful eyes of Chu Fei and Su Chenglin, Zhou Zhang said nothing more, only silently turned and stepped forward. Just then, a huge vine suddenly swung at him with terrifying speed. With lightning-fast reflexes, Zhou Zhang managed to dodge gracefully. Facing the enormous, writhing mass of vines, he showed no signs of fear. Tightening his grip on the weapon in his hand, Zhou Zhang smiled slightly, his eyes flashing with proud confidence. With just a few powerful swings, those mighty vine branches were severed piece by piece, falling to the ground. Turning around, he looked at Chu Fei and Zhang Ruochang, his voice tinged with a touch of pride, did you see that? Zhou Zhang continued to dive into the midst of the vines, each powerful swing of his weapon causing the giant branches to break one after another. Acting decisively, he spoke, "As long as we cut off the main branch of them, it will save a lot of energy." His confident and triumphant demeanor excited Zhang Ruochang, who stood nearby, prompting him to cheer, "Don't say anything else, just this agility of the captain is cool enough." Hearing the praise, Chu Fei let out a sigh, not forgetting to throw in a jab, "That's why he's the captain, while you can only be a team member." On the other side, a faint golden light shone down. After the fierce battle, George's team continued to catch their breath, sweat glistening on their foreheads. A teammate standing nearby tried to calm the mood, seriously reminding, "Be careful, the knights are coming." In response, Lev merely curled his lips slightly, a mocking smile briefly appearing. He coldly spoke, "Humph, just hearing that reveals they are a bunch of cowards who know nothing but hiding behind armor." In front of them, a massive pile of vines blocked their path. A subordinate behind Lev looked worriedly and cautiously asked, "Captain Lev, how should we deal with this vine situation?" Faced with the predicament, instead of answering directly, Lev indifferently countered with a question, "How to deal with it?" Saying that, he stepped forward, placing a hand on a nearby vine, appearing mysterious, "Of course, we must." As he finished speaking, he swung the weapon in his hand with great force, his body filled with a fighting spirit, roaring like thunder and crushing them. Among George's group, after observing the situation, he raised his voice to command, "Everyone take a rest for a moment, then use all your strength to push forward." During the break, Matthew let out a sigh and complained, "Phew, it's too hot." Suddenly, from somewhere, the sound of a gunshot ripped through the quiet atmosphere. A bullet flew straight in, hitting Matthew right in the neck. He immediately clutched his neck, eyes wide open, and let out a horrifying scream. Seeing something was wrong with Matthew, who collapsed to the ground, holding his neck in pain, George rushed over, calling out softly, his voice tinged with concern. Matthew struggled to support himself, and George quickly examined the wound. In just a few seconds, he realized the cause. From Matthew's neck, George pulled out a dark-colored arrow. He spoke seriously, "It's the Africa team." Returning to Zhou Zhang's group, Yi Yihong smiled brightly with excitement, "At this pace, we are definitely the fastest." Hua Zi, with his usual calmness, reminded, "Don't be too pleased, who knows what the other teams will cause." Zhou Zhang agreed, his tone calm yet firm, "No matter what comes, we will take it all." Suddenly, his gaze subtly glanced in one direction as if sensing something unusual. In the distance, 4 red horizontal stripes appeared, and Zhou Zhang's expression slightly darkened. He murmured, "There are enemies, and they have a purpose targeting us." Without hesitation, he informed his teammates, "There is a situation, you stay on alert, I will go check it out." Hearing his command, Hua Zi nodded decisively in response, "Yes." Under the dim light of the moon, the African team stepped forward steadily. Zhou Zhang concealed himself on a high branch, slightly leaning to observe, somewhat surprised, Africa team. The group suddenly halted as the leading figure signaled with a decisive gesture, kneeling down carefully to scout the situation ahead. In the meantime, one member of their group noticed him standing alone and pulled out a small tube, preparing to blow something out. But before he could act, Zhou Zhang's voice resonated from behind, steady yet challenging, "You also like playing dirty, or shall we compete?" Hearing this, the man was startled, his breath caught. He quickly turned around, his eyes filled with panic and sharpness. In an instant, Zhou Zhang swiftly subdued his opponent. With cold, piercing eyes, he quietly spoke, "There are 5 left." Suddenly, a painful scream echoed from Zhou Zhang's team. A member of the team was furious, shouting loudly, "Who ambushed us?" Hearing the shout, everyone immediately turned around, their eyes filled with vigilance. Su Chenglin stepped out from the shadows, her voice calm yet authoritative, "It was me." The one who shouted sighed in relief, "Captain, we thought we were under attack." But Su Chenglin coldly replied, "There was indeed an ambush just now." Upon hearing this, he was stunned, exclaiming in surprise, "Oh, then what should we?" Su Chenglin smiled and said, "It was a few martial artists from the Africa team." Looking at those who had been subdued, she continued, "All settled. Jadamu at 24 stages, and Han at 23 stages. Su Qinglin's words left him momentarily speechless, marveling, these people are all high-level martial artists from Africa, yet they were handled alone by the captain. Though he appeared somewhat terrified, his eyes could not hide the admiration. While he knew the captain was incredibly skilled, he never expected her to be this monstrous in capability. He quietly observed as Su Qinglin spoke in a steady tone, instruct the whole team to stay alert, there might still be ambushes. Just then, a series of loud explosions echoed from afar. Zhou Zhang spoke seriously, indeed, we are not the only ones being attacked tonight. The light of dawn gently illuminated the mountains in the background, but the atmosphere between the 4 team leaders was tense to the point of suffocation. The 4 individuals seemed destined to meet, unexpectedly facing each other in a completely random circle. George, the captain of the Europe team, his sharp gaze sweeping over each person before speaking, gentlemen, I am the captain of the Europe team, George. If everyone is here, perhaps we can have a conversation. The captain of the Africa team, Mambor, with an arrogant gaze and a cold tone, responded, there is nothing to discuss. This is our territory, outsiders should leave. Hearing this, George's expression darkened, anger evident in his voice, Mambor, I have yet to settle the debt from tonight with you. To dare use your strength to provoke 3 places alone, you truly have some skill, but do not think we cannot unite to eliminate you. Mambor showed no signs of backing down, a contemptuous smile curling at his lips as he challenged, if you dare to come, then try. Lev, who had remained silent until now, suddenly interjected in a deep yet authoritative voice, cutting through the argument between George and Mambor, stop the nonsense. A sneak attack will bring no advantage to anyone. Instead, let us stick to the old rules, whoever has the skill to take the crystal fruit will be the claimants, and afterward, no one is allowed to steal it. George narrowed his eyes, contemplating for a moment before responding, agreed. Mambor's voice rang out as well, without holding back, agreed. Zhou Zhang also concurred and added, we agree as well. In light of the current situation, Yi Hong, the team leader, acknowledged and said, it seems we need to speed up our progress. He frowned and made an observation, the other teams seem to have quite a bit of experience in competing for crystal fruit. In this regard, we are at a disadvantage. Zhou Zhang, standing beside him, contemplated and agreed, A moment later, he smiled gently and turned to speak to his teammates, but we never intended to completely cut down all the vines to seize the crystal fruit, as it would cause panic among the ones behind. Zhou Zhang pointed ahead, where the forest and vines were quite dense, explaining, I just feel that these vines are very useful for practical combat training for everyone. As for the crystal fruit, we know how to seize it with discretion. He waved his hand, encouraging the morale of the troops, all right, everyone, don't waste such a good opportunity for training. He ordered the continued cutting of the vines. The vines in this area were not easy to handle, if they struck a person, everyone had to dodge. One member of George's squad was hit painfully by a thick vine against a tree. George immediately yelled. As soon as he finished speaking, a firecracker was launched, flying towards George. Just as he sat up, diverting attention, everyone focused, and the firecracker exploded right above, creating unimaginable chaos. George anxiously instructed the soldiers, the vines here are too thick, which is not advantageous for individual combat. Seeing the advantageous situation, a henchman from Lek Fu's legion smirked wickedly. Above the chaos, Lev's army lay in wait. The henchman then asked Lev, Captain, what are we waiting for? Lev calmly replied, of course, we are waiting for reinforcements. With the thicket so dense, I'm not foolish like those armored idiots. Lev, with his robust physique, merely draped a cloak over himself, showcasing all his muscular contours, looking very imposing. Flying above him was a fleet of attack aircraft, ready to bombard anyone who dared to resist. Lev mockingly said, though being strong suits me well, why not take the easier path if there's one? Just as expected, waves of bomber planes relentlessly dropped bombs into the forest where the chaos was unfolding, creating an unbearable scene of devastation. Smoke and fire engulfed the area, with an innumerable amount of bombs being released. George, tiredly observing the scene before him, could only curse, damn wild beasts, they even know how to use technology. Immediately after, he pulled out his radio and shouted, deploy the combat support unit, we have one too. Mambor, perched on a rocky outcrop, anxiously watched the situation and couldn't hold back any longer, exclaiming, "Shameless, using such a method again. We can't wait any longer." On the other side, Zhou Zhang was sitting atop a tall tree, unaffected by the smoke and dust. After inspecting the situation for a while, he was also taken aback. "Oh wow, there's still some brains here, and I won't be polite either." Immediately, Zhou Zhang summoned the little beast, a gigantic and mighty creature that let out a long, powerful roar as soon as it appeared. Lev, in fear, asked, "What is that?" George was stunned. "Oh my god." Mambor was a bit calmer. He furrowed his brow, wondering, could it be Zhou Zhang? It was clear that this time the little beast's appearance had already instilled a degree of fear and respect in the leaders. The little beast soared above the towering treetops. The little beast flew up, exuding a magnificent aura. Its first action was to let out a roar, then it shot up into the sky. George felt a bit confused, thinking that the little beast would just fly away like that. But soon he had to rethink. He yelled in a panic, looking for a place to hide, unsure of what it intended to do. The little beast surprisingly made a loop and flipped back, hurtling down toward the ground at full speed like a massive spaceship running out of fuel, freely descending toward the earth. It roared loudly. With such astonishing speed, even Zhou Zhang, who was riding the little beast, hadn't anticipated it. He shouted, "Aha! I told you it had momentum, not that it would end your life." Of course, the little beast was not a foolish creature. It landed firmly right in the middle of the battlefield, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. A few creeping vines that were just causing trouble suddenly recoiled in fear from a spark of fire gently blown from the mouth of the little beast, making them desist from their antics. However, due to their overwhelming numbers and the many protruding objects on the ground obstructing Zhou Zhang's path, the little beast had to roar and breathe fire downwards to incinerate everything, creating a clear path for him to walk. Zhou Zhang skillfully jumped down from the back of the little beast, a triumphant smile blooming on his face. The giant crystal fruit was right before him, protected by dozens of thick vines intertwined around it, while flames below were showing signs of growing larger. Without hesitation, Zhou Zhang quickly identified his target, confirming that there were no further obstacles. To avoid any potential troubles, he decided to strike decisively at the crystal fruit. Holding it in his hands without any hindrance, Zhou Zhang said with a grin, "I've got it, let's retreat." Riding on the little beast, he signaled to leave, and the little beast obediently soared into the sky, escaping the chaotic melee of the people still engaged in a fierce battle below the forest. Yi Yihong looked on and remarked, "It's the captain." Lev questioned, "The captain of the Asian team?" George frowned deeply, his mind filled with concerns. Could he still be the same as always? Mambor appeared much more subdued. He remained silent, but the expression on his face was extremely intense. Standing atop the little beast's head, Zhou Zhang announced, "Everyone, I have obtained the crystal fruit. It wouldn't matter even if the Lord came." He smiled faintly, and George expressed his concern, muttering, "It seems that from now on, the Asian region will have one more troublesome character." In stark contrast, Lev looked on the bright side and cheerfully said, "Great, very good. An opponent like that is just strong enough." Mambor's expression grew increasingly grim. His face turned pale, and he didn't utter a word, not even willing to look straight ahead. The news quickly reached the one in the eastern tower. Lan Shi reported to the council President Zhou Zhang and his team should be returning soon. He calmly gazed into the distance, sighing, "Crystal fruit, I thought we would have to wait longer, but unexpectedly, it has fallen into our hands within just a few days." Suddenly, a familiar roar sounded from outside. The president smiled and said, "He's here." The second council president, Lan Shi, and Zhou Zhang gathered in the conference room. The crystal fruit was neatly and elegantly placed inside a glass case, looking very prestigious. The president spoke first, "Everyone, this is the trophy of our Asian team." The crystal fruit lay quietly in the glass case as he continued to explain, "Previously, our Asian team had only heard of this item but had never seen it. This time, thanks to Zhou Zhang and the efforts of the team members, we have successfully recovered the crystal fruit. However, I won't go on too long. What everyone is surely concerned about is the value of this crystal fruit. An ordinary person only needs one fruit to directly enter the ranks of martial artists, even breaking through straight to 10 stages. Upon hearing this information, Lan Shi could only smile lightly, secretly thinking, this power is indeed comparable to an elixir. Zhou Zhang bowed his head, maintaining a faint smile on the outside, but internally he blamed himself. I almost thought of it, isn't this exactly like the experience gained in the game? The president began negotiating with Zhou Zhang. According to the rules of the Asian team, as the team leader, you are entitled to 10% of the loot. You have 3 options: 1 is to take 10% of the crystal fruit, 2 is to freely choose 10 kg of composite metal from the central weapon manufacturing company's warehouse, and 3 is to exchange it for cash, directly transferred to your personal account. Zhou Zheng questioned, if the crystal fruit is cut, will it retain its effects? The president replied calmly, don't worry, this has been tested. Zhou Zheng began to weigh the pros and cons. He thought to himself, 10% of the crystal fruit could certainly enhance my current strength, but if I want to progress further, what I need right now is better equipment. Only then can I continue to look for more crystal fruits. With his far-sighted vision, Zhou Zhang made his decision. He said, I choose the second option. Time passed, and 1 year later, Zhou Zhang was searching for crystal fruits alongside Little Beast. He leisurely sat on the back of the creature, smiling as he said, the crystal fruits we find will naturally belong to me. At this moment, Zhou Zhang had leveled up to level 185. Despite searching all day long, he had yet to find any signs of crystal fruit, which left him feeling a bit tired. Zhou Zhang yawned wearily, but soon after, his spirits lifted when he discovered a piece of epic thief gear crystal fruit. Finally, he could hit the field. He began to examine it closely, considering the equipment lines displayed on the information panel. After a moment of exploration, Zhou Zhang discovered something important. He exclaimed excitedly, there are energy fluctuations from crystal fruit within a 100 km radius ahead. While thrilled, he cautiously made a judgment, the position of this crystal fruit, if I remember correctly, won't be able to be contested for another 6 months. Nevertheless, he still wanted to test his luck, ordering Little Beast, let's go check it out. Without waiting long, he and Little Beast immediately made their way toward the target. In another place, someone was already waiting. He gently pressed a small switch on his hand. Instantly, a sea of traps was activated, all of which completely turned invisible in an instant. Everything was prepared to target Zhou Zhang. George, with a somewhat weary face but still wearing a satisfied smile, observed everything. Very good. His eyes flashed with a fierce glint, the trap has been set, just waiting for the mouse to come in. He informed his subordinate, Luis, take your men and withdraw immediately. When the trap is activated, the area within a 3 km radius will turn into a sea of fire. George confidently continued, of course, Zhou Zhang and his beast will definitely not escape this sea of fire. Before Zhou Zhang, a ripe crystal fruit unexpectedly appeared. He was astonished, not believing that there was actually a ripe crystal fruit here. Little Beast did not think much and immediately dashed toward the target in front of them. Suddenly, Little Beast stepped on something along the way. At first, Zhou Zhang only thought it was a normal obstacle, but the crystal fruit in front of them showed signs of being unusual. A thick mist suddenly enveloped him and Little Beast. Zhou Zhang widened his eyes, realizing something was wrong. At that moment, the crystal fruit that had just appeared vanished. He shouted loudly, the crystal fruit is a fake. Without hesitation, Zhou Zhang ordered, Little Beast, quickly retreat. But as he and Little Beast had ventured deep into the area, George was just waiting for this opportunity. He laughed loudly, unable to contain his glee, then pressed the activation button. Immediately, the entire surrounding area exploded. Each bomb station was triggered in unison, creating a series of huge explosions. Not stopping there, George and his companions had also carefully prepared additional artillery, firing relentlessly toward Little Beast. With its large body, Little Beast could evade a few shells, but with hundreds of shells attacking continuously, the situation became critical. Zhou Zhang tried to remain calm, ordering Little Beast to fly higher. Just a little bit more, and they could escape. However, before both man and beast could execute this, a strong pulling force emerged, stopping Little Beast in its tracks. Zhou Zhang's eyes widened in horror as he looked at the displayed data. A multitude of red dots representing enemies was moving ever closer, growing in number each moment. He gritted his teeth, thinking to himself, as expected, they were well prepared. A sea of fire is engulfing us, determined to hunt us down to the end. Little Beast saw this and immediately took a leap, trying hard to fly higher to escape. In the distance, Cutr, fully equipped with protective goggles, stood beneath the blazing sky with a sinister grin, coldly uttering, "Farewell to the Star of Asia." His sharp gaze landed on Zhou Zhang and Little Beast, and he softly remarked, "Your death in this grand trap is also considered a worthy demise." A massive explosion unexpectedly erupted, blocking Little Beast's path upwards. The pressure from the blast slammed both Little Beast and Zhou Zhang to the ground, sending them plunging straight into the sea of flames. Zhou Zhang fell, small and fragile in the form of a human, his heart screaming, "No! I don't want to die. This is not the ending I hoped for." He opened his eyes weakly and called out, "Little Beast." His gaze caught the loyal creature also tumbling down with extreme speed. Zhou Zhang tried to reach out, but it was in vain. In the final moment, before his eyes, everything began to blur. He struggled amidst the darkness and light. In that instant, familiar images reappeared in his mind. Xian Shirhan smiled and called out his name, Zhou Zhang. Su Yunwen stood beside him, softly calling, "Young master." Lan Shi's mischievous smile flashed by, "Young master, I am stronger now." And Zhang Shaoqi, with her always hopeful gaze directed at him. Beautiful memories, familiar faces, they were all waiting for him to lead. There were so many unfinished tasks, so many people who loved and worried about him were longing for his return. But now, in the face of this great calamity, Zhou Zhang bitterly furrowed his brows. In his heart, there was only one apology left. "I'm sorry, everyone." His body continued to fall, merging into the sea of flames, creating a colossal explosion that echoed loudly. News about the incident quickly spread everywhere. A shocking piece of news: the Star of Asia, Zhou Zhang, has been confirmed to have fallen victim to a deadly ambush. Everyone couldn't help but mourn, all sighing, "What a pity! A talent like him is gone." This is surely the act of some irregulars from other continents. Some readers worried even more, without Zhou Zhang, what will our Asian region do? Zhou Zhang's spirit tablet now rests in the embrace of his loved ones. In the portrait, the youthful face appears with a gentle smile, alongside a solemn bouquet of white flowers. Xian Shirhan and Su Yunwen stand side by side, their gazes contemplative. Su Yunwen couldn't hold back her sobs. In a fit of rage, Lan Shi clenched her teeth and vowed, "Young master, I will definitely find out who ambushed you. I will avenge you." At that moment, a strange figure entered, drawing Lan Shi's attention. It was George. Despite the funeral, he remained arrogant. With malicious intent, George said, "What a pity, Zhou Zhang. So young and yet dead already. But precisely because you were so young, working without restraint led to this outcome, right?" Having said that, he unabashedly touched the wooden coffin holding Zhou Zhang's spirit tablet. Lan Shi, already suffering internally, was pushed to the brink upon hearing this. She yelled, "You bastard, what did you just say?" Zhang Shaoqi immediately held her back, reminding her, "Lan Shi, calm down. He is the top expert from the Europe region. If we create conflict now, we will have no chance of winning." Lan Shi knew that Zhang Shaoqi's words were true, but the anger within her did not subside. Ultimately, she could only furiously curse, "Damn it! Scumbag!" George glanced at Lan Shi, his eyes filled with disdain. He gave a cold, indifferent smile and said, "It seems you are no different from him, both of you do not know the limits." As he turned to leave, George added a threatening remark, "We will meet again someday. When that time comes, I will teach you how to be a person." Back on the battlefield, the place was now desolate, with no signs of life. The ground was cracked and arid, everything reduced to ashes. Suddenly, a powerful beam of light shone from above onto a nearby mound of earth. The light gradually dissipated, revealing a figure lying on the surface. It was Zhou Zhang. He opened his eyes and shouted loudly, as if just escaping from a nightmare. I am not dead. Looking around, he realized he was completely naked. Zhou Zhang hurriedly checked his body and suddenly noticed the ring on his hand. He murmured, could it be the reborn ring? Information about the ring surfaced in his mind. Reborn ring. Usage level, 90. Profession, unlimited. Effect, increases attack by 100%. Special skill, when the wearer of the ring dies, there is a 20% chance of rebirth with full health and a 5-second invincible state. Zhou Zheng thought for a moment and then realized, but that's not right. According to the effect of the ring, I should have resurrected right here with full health, so why did I appear here? He continued to analyze, this place is clearly where I appeared when I first traveled to this world. According to the game rules, this could be an automatic resurrection point. After some contemplation, he gradually understood how the mechanism worked. Zhou Zheng smiled brightly, feeling a sense of pride within. If this is indeed like a game, then even if I die, I will resurrect. It's just that I will lose a level. Zhou Zheng currently had only level 184, and the reality of his demotion was an undeniable fact. However, he reminded himself that no matter what, being killed was still a great humiliation. His eyes burned with energy and killing intent as he gritted his teeth and swore, I will make you pay back this debt tenfold. Time flew by, and it had been 2 months since that day. Zhou Zheng tirelessly pursued leveling up, refusing to allow himself any rest. He tightened his new gloves, the shiny armor glinting, and smiled contentedly. At last, he had reached level 200. Raising his hand to his mouth, he let out a sharp, loud whistle. Little Beast heard it and let out a thunderous roar, then flapped its wings and flew toward him. Zhou Zheng looked at its large, imposing figure with eyes full of love and pride. He sat down on the barren ground, reflecting on the journey he had been through. In this world, he had finally reached the highest level, an achievement he once thought was out of reach. Remembering the difficult early days, the painful training sessions that left him exhausted, and the simple meals shared with his father in peace, every memory came flooding back as vivid as if they had just happened yesterday. Zhou Zheng clearly felt that he had matured, not just in strength but also in willpower. He looked up at the night sky with a determined gaze, then smiled and said, I am no longer the person I was yesterday. Turning to Little Beast, he gently said, Little Beast, we should head home now. Meanwhile, at a tavern, the night had fallen. Lanterns had been lit, casting a warm glow on the space, ready to serve patrons late into the night. Inside the bar, the atmosphere was as lively as usual. Many groups of people gathered, chatting animatedly, while some chose to sit quietly alone. A figure clad in a hood sat by himself in a dim corner, and suddenly, a glass of liquor was slid towards him. He looked up in surprise. Zhou Zheng stood there, with a polite smile, this drink is on me. The cloaked person nodded slightly in response, thank you. After taking a sip of the liquor, he approached Zhou Zheng, gently placing a bun in his hand, then quickly made his exit. Before disappearing into the crowd, he casually remarked, the bun is very delicious, I recommend you try it. Zhou Zheng glanced at the bun, then peeled it open. Inside the filling was a small USB drive. He gripped it tightly in his hand, his eyes flickering with confidence. He thought to himself, with this document, the upcoming performance is sure to be spectacular. At the same time, at George's magnificent residence, a grand party was underway. Hundreds of noble ladies and numerous dignitaries were invited to the celebration. The space was filled with laughter, fine wine, and soft music, exuding an atmosphere of opulence and grandeur. George, with an arrogant demeanor, stood on the highest podium. He clapped his hands, drawing the attention of all the guests. As every eye turned in his direction, he wore a self-satisfied smile and began a solemn yet empty speech, thank you all for being here today. He paused for a moment, a proud expression on his face as he continued, surely, you can guess the reason for this celebration. He laughed coldly, without any shame, declaring, indeed, 2 months ago, I personally ended Zhou Zhang, the captain of the Asian region, their brightest star. Below, whispers immediately rose up like a rolling tide. Many were shocked by the news, while others appeared to revel in it. A voice rang out amidst the crowd, "It truly is George." Someone boldly asserted, "This time, the Asian region will surely take many years to recover." Zhou Zhang leaned against the wall outside the lobby, secretly laughing. "If you have the guts, just admit it yourself." He stepped up each stair with a cold gaze. "Do you like to show off? Then let me give you a death that no one will ever forget." Meanwhile, George, now a bit tipsy, slung his arm over a henchman and instructed, "The young ladies today are all top-notch, make sure to." After that, the henchman helped George into the restroom and carefully reported, "Captain, I'll wait for you outside." In the meantime, Zhou Zhang pressed the switch to turn on the broadcast, thinking, "Today the whole world will witness your death." Instantly, the large screens in the biggest centers all began broadcasting from the Europe region. Even the central capital was drawn to this broadcast, as they had no idea what was happening. The Asian alliance was the same, large screens and small screens were everywhere. Suddenly, millions of screens around the world showed George in the restroom, laughing to himself, completely oblivious. The audience gawked in disbelief, astonished. The high-ranking leaders were grim-faced, not understanding what was unfolding. Among them, several recognized him and shouted, "This man seems to be Senator George." Zhou Zhang spoke softly, his voice filled with haunting resonance. "George, do you remember me?" As soon as he heard that voice, George's expression darkened, confusion clearly showing on his face. Without having time to zip up his pants, George turned around, unable to believe it, absolutely unable to believe it. When he saw Zhou Zhang standing right there, he screamed, "How can you still be alive?" Immediately, his private parts were exposed in front of the public, causing everyone to gasp, and someone shouted, "Ah, pervert." George fell backward, pointing at him, "Zhou Zhang, you should have disappeared long ago." Zhou Zhang walked closer, chuckling as he replied, "That's right, but sometimes luck comes back." Instantly, those influential figures in the underworld reacted differently. "Zhou Zhang, Counselor Zhou is not dead, you truly are a ghost, the ghost has returned." Su Yunwen stammered, He's not dead." Xiang Shirhan was no different, she softly replied, "MHM." At the Starlight War Team headquarters, Lan Shi smiled brightly, "Young Master, that voice is Young Master." Zhang Xiaoqi couldn't hide her joy, he indeed has returned. George rushed forward, shouting with force, "Are you ashes rising again? Then I will extinguish you once more." But before he could act, Zhou Zhang raised a hand. George immediately became a wooden statue, frozen in shock. It turned out Zhou Zhang was pointing a black sword right at his heart. Calmly, he said, "George, I will finally teach you a lesson." The sword glimmered with a cold light, but Zhou Zhang did not rush, he kept admiring it, then continued, "If you don't seek death, you won't die." He delivered the first blow to him, causing George to painfully stagger backward. He started the drone camera. Zhou Zhang chuckled lightly, below was an exciting performance right on site. Raising one hand in preparation, he leisurely led the way, inviting everyone to enjoy. He waved his hand, launching a powerful move like a tempest, destroying everything within reach into fragments. In that moment of carnage, the guards panicked greatly. One nearby shouted, "What kind of monster have we provoked?" Another said, "Chairman, we must send people for reinforcement immediately." The chairman contemplated the situation and then replied, "There's no need anymore, a martial artist like George can be easily killed by him. Sending more people would just be offering their lives." Zhou Zhang coldly advanced alone, witnessing this scene. The chairman sighed, perhaps the world's perspective changed the moment Zhou Zhang drew his sword to end George's sinful life. He claimed he would change for this person. All those who loved Zhou Zhang witnessed this historic moment. They rejoiced for him and felt vindicated that a ruthless villain had received just punishment. After completing the task, he returned to the Starlight War Team's base. Lan Shi excitedly waved to welcome him. He thought to himself, perhaps changing this world will not happen overnight. Returning to the embrace of those who genuinely loved him, he knew that at least he would do his utmost to protect his family and friends. He and they went to visit his father's grave, bitterly saying, "Father, I've come to visit you." He knew that this place was the gravestone of the founder. He smiled resolutely at the future, Once the place where dreams began, it will also be the place where dreams continue.